Greetings, programs. This is Wretch, and welcome back to Vampire the Masquerade Parliament of Knives. And in Chapter 4, in the last stream, guys, Silas got to rub elbows with some of Ottawa's most powerful kindred when he got invited, for lack of a better term, to a Primogen Council. And now we are traveling with Qui in Chapter 5, Exhibition. Let's go ahead and get to it. The exhibition hall looms large over you, its stone wall covered by a nearly 20-foot tall banner proclaiming, "This week only, Canada's finest modern art." Most of the lights have been turned off for the night aside from a minimal illumination for security purposes. You sense no movement, but that doesn't preclude the possibility of hidden cameras. "Modern art," Qui says with a sniff. "Only a diva would find that stuff appealing." He had parked the car 2 blocks away and walked with you to case the building on foot. Of course, the whole thing is a front for her more secretive business practices. "How do you know that?" you ask. "Why would she hide them here?" The sheriff motions for you to follow him through the shadows cast by several decorative trees leading up to the hall's front entrance. "I don't know for certain. That's what we're here to confirm. My team tracked down the IP addresses used by a number of her disinformation agents to this building. At first, I thought we'd find something in her blood doll brothels, but that lead came up empty. It has to be here. A less vain kindred would outsource her work to a hacker farm overseas, but Lisha needs to oversee everything personally." "Still don't understand what she's done wrong. Why are we breaking in?" "She's the one poised to gain the most if Arundel never resurfaces. She's been working in secret to discredit the prince's business firms and build up her own interests to take over if his crash and burn. Everyone says your sire has the most to gain from Arundel's disappearance. Turns out that's not true at all. Now that doesn't absolve Corliss, but it does make Alicia look awfully guilty. There's a large basement beneath our feet. And according to her insurance specification, it's used to store artwork off rotation from the exhibit. But the Hydro Company records show way too much power consumption for it to be a storage unit." "Well, why risk a break-in then?" you ask. "The Camarilla isn't exactly known for demanding evidence when an accusation by the right person is just as damning." "I could justify destroying her already," Qui says matter-of-factly. "But if she's already got these systems up and in place, we need to know how to counter them before I tighten the noose." He growls slightly, but manages to suppress his irritation. He's unaccustomed to explaining himself to younger kindred. "I've been sheriff this long because I don't jump in half-cocked. Don't confuse caution for inaction." The two of you approach an employee entrance and Qui holds up a warning hand before you leave the shadow of the trees. "Best if we stealth up for the approach," he says as he disappears into the shadows. You follow his lead. Last thing you want is to be seen here. "I'll go on ahead and disable the outside camera, and you can follow me inside when I get back." So there are cameras. Even though you're invisible to any but the elders of your kind, you shift about nervously until Qui returns. "We're in the clear. No guards on patrol, no cameras. Let's go." You bite your lip in frustration. All the people he could have roped into this mess, why did it have to be you? I like this one. He may be onto something. Being here to discover the truth could be useful to me. I plan to keep the mission a secret from Corliss. The door closes behind you, and you wince as the push bar latches into place with a sharp click. A quick scan of the ceiling doesn't reveal any cameras watching, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're safe. Your abilities hide you from living beings, but a camera would record you the same as it would any mortal. The hallway leads in 2 directions. To the right, it empties out into the main exhibition hall just after passing an office marked security, while the left leads to a half-dozen closed and unmarked doors. You listen carefully, but hear no sound coming from the office, and that's actually a very important distinction that one needs to know when it comes to like obfuscate, it doesn't necessarily hide yourself, but it's more of a mind trick to the people around you that they don't notice you. So it's like, it's not like you cloak like Predator or anything like that. It's just you kind of enhance your ability to make people forget that you're there. We should hit security first just in case they got any footage of us, Qui says. Then we'll head downstairs. Creep down the hallway beside Qui, every footfall calculated to avoid making noise. The smell of wet paint pervades the air and the walls fairly glisten with a fresh coat of bone white, which extends out into the exhibition hall beyond the limits of the corridor. When you reach the security office door, you carefully peer in through a thin rectangular window. A uniformed guard is reclining in an office chair at the other end of the room, snoring lightly, a thin line of drool straining the lapel of his uniform. A series of computer monitors is mounted on the wall, and you nearly curse when you notice that there's a camera recessed in the ceiling right behind you, trained on the office door. You've been so preoccupied with keeping silent that you failed to notice it. What's worse, there's at least 3 camera feeds hidden in the very trees you crept through to get to the building's side door. Were the shadows and cover of night enough to obscure your identifying features while you approached? Qui leans over to whisper so low you can barely make out his words. We need to erase that footage. Phew. What's my hunger at right now? It says I should feed soon. I approach from behind and feed on the guard. The after effects will leave him 2 days to know what we're doing until it's too late. I guess we could do that. We're gonna, I feel that this, I kind of feel that like the safe option would be to maintain obfuscate, but we're also hungry. You know what? We're going to take the safe approach here. We'll maintain our obfuscation and stealth through the room. Deal with the guard if he wakes up, but he'll never see me. You drift slowly around the guard, making sure to keep your distance even though it's unlikely that he'd be able to detect you while you're masked by your abilities. He doesn't wake, doesn't so much as shift as you busy yourself deleting the night's footage, even though your cloak drops the moment you hit the keyboard. We should shut down the system while we're at it, Qui says in a delicate whisper. The footage should only be stored locally. Alicia's afraid of running afoul of Second Inquisition agencies. At least she's treating Arendel's edict against internet usage seriously. It's easy enough to blame on the sleeping guard. For all she knows, he snagged his foot on a cable while he slept. He grabs a small set of keys from the table. These could be useful too. When you're certain that the system is shut down and won't be recording anything anytime soon, you and Qui quickly leave and move down the hallway further into the building. The security system dealt with, you and Qui return to the hallway, backtracking to the doors you ignored earlier. These areas of the building are more Spartan than the public-facing hallway, and the smell of new paint thins as bone-white walls gives way to a sickly yellow. How will we know where to go? You ask. I have to guess, Qui whispers, and I do. I'd say it's the most out-of-the-way door. Less likely that someone would stumble on it by accident. Alicia won't be wanting to rack up a body count protecting this place from snoops and accidental discoveries. He points to a thin door at the end of the hall marked Private and tries the knob. Locked. Lucky I picked up these keys. The first 2 keys yield no results, but the third enters the lock easily and a quick twist of the knob pulls the door open, revealing a lit stairwell. Doesn't look much like a janitor closet to me, you say, peering down the steps. They descend sharper and farther into the ground than they should for any normal basement storage room. The hum of machinery at work rises along with the stale underground air. You shiver unexpectedly, as if some hidden instinct is begging you to flee and not look back. Do you believe me now? He asks. Well, I have to admit it's suspicious, but I doubt there are many kindred in this city without a few skeletons in their basements. That's a safe bet, Qui says. But not all those skeletons are undermining their prince and taking over everything he owned. He takes a single tentative step down the stairs, then another, his footsteps masked in a shroud of silence. You follow 3 steps behind just as carefully. The sheriff might survive being caught down here, but it's unlikely you would. A neonate stands little chance against a primogen's wrath. Halfway down the stairs, you even out for a moment, leaving room for a single door with a placard labeled networking. You listen for any occupants before pushing the door open to reveal several wooden desks, each equipped with a desktop computer and a depressingly mundane array of office supplies. This can't be all of it, Qui grunts, closing the door. We have to go deeper. Another door stands between you and the remaining stairs, and when Qui reaches out to take hold of the doorknob, he jerks back immediately, a slick wetness on his hand. That's strange, he mutters as something within the mechanism clicks and the door opens. There was some give to the metal and it was wet. He shakes his head. I'll worry about it later. Let's find out what Alicia's keeping down here. Oh, that's not good. Deeper still. The stairwell deposits you on a concrete slab raised over a pit that falls at least 20 feet lower to your right, blocked off by a guardrail hand-worn to smoothness by numerous passerby. A low groaning can be heard from the floor below, but try as you might, you can't make out its source in the dark. You step carefully down the catwalk following a string of dim lights that provide the only illumination. At the end of the walkway, a set of stairs descends into the black abyss below. You scan the wall, finally finding a switch that you hope will turn on the basement lights. Go ahead, he says. This is what we came to see. You flick the switch upward and a line of fluorescent lamps snap on above you with a sharp click, shortly followed by another row, then another, until the entire cavernous basement is awash in dazzling illumination. Accustomed to the dark, it takes your eyes several seconds to adjust, but when they do, you have to fight the urge to slam the switch back down again and forget you were ever there. Christ, he exclaims. What the fuck is this? A dozen concrete columns in 2 rows of 6 span from floor to ceiling, each bristling with wiring and computer components. Big flat screen monitors flicker to life with displays measuring everything from vital signs to stock market tickers. Numerous men and women are huddled around each of the column bases, tapping away at keyboards, both virtual and mechanical. Their eyes are vacant, mouths slack, many of their faces largely hidden behind virtual reality headsets. A thin metal rack stands next to the victims, each supporting bags of fluid slowly draining through plastic tubes inserted into their flesh. I thought it would be a sweatshop, he says. Ortal's working on computers. He gestures toward a man hooked up to the column nearest you. I know that man. He's a ghoul I thought died years ago. Now he's down here, barely aware of his surroundings, hooked up to tubes so he doesn't have to eat or drink. He squints. I think they might even have Vitae on tap to keep them from going through withdrawal. Haven't seen anything like this since the Zamisi flesh pits outside of Montreal. He takes out his camera and starts taking shot after shot of the basement workshop. Yeah, we do not need to, we've gotten this far, we don't need to figure out what's happening here. The fact that this is happening is bad enough. I've seen enough. Corliss needs to know about this and we can't risk being seen. We need to go to Corliss with this, you say as Qui snaps more pictures. Hey, some dude. The sheriff slips his camera back into his pocket and eyes you dubiously. We still don't know for sure if Alicia is responsible for the prince's disappearance, he says, an edge of frustration in his voice. I want to know more before I take her out. The politics of the situation are too fragile to act rashly. I think it's the right move, you say. It'll have to wait until tomorrow night, he says, brooking no disobedience. By the time we get out of here, there will barely be time to get back to our havens. You have to admit that he has a point. An Alicia's exhibition will still be going on tomorrow. Either you'll have to tell Corliss while we're there or wait until after. My job is to serve the prince's will. If your sire can be of use, then it's her duty to assist me. You look over the railing at the oblivious mortals. You're beginning to wonder just how much of kindred existence you've been sheltered from all these years. You've always known that your position in the ivory tower afforded you certain privileges, but as the veil lifts, you're left questioning what's left of your own humanity. Trust me, he says with a scowl as he flicks the light switch off, dousing the horror in darkness once again. All that's left shining in the pit are flickering computer screens. I'll deal with this one way or another, but I'll have to do it properly. Alicia has more raw power than you might be aware of, and her influence is everywhere. Why do you think she furnishes so many kindred with vessels from her collection of blood dolls? She wants them on her side if the shit hits the fan. You leave with Qui as stealthily as you arrived, taking a brief detour into the security room to confirm that the feeds are still down. When you're out among the trees, you finally sigh with relief. It's getting close to dawn, he says, looking to the skyline. I'll drop you off near your haven.
Well, I admit that virtual reality sweatshop was fascinating. I wish we could have taken more time to discover how it all worked.
I think you're missing the gravity of the situation, he replies. This isn't a time for science experiments or intellectual inquiries. Miss Gray's time is running out. Even if she's not responsible for the prince's disappearance, she's a disaster waiting to happen. I can track down the power usage in that basement with my meager resources. Do you think the mortals of the Inquisition will have any trouble if they choose to look? No one will question me when I take her down. But if she's hidden the prince away, I need to find out where and how before she greets the sun. Qui unlocks the doors on his old silver sedan and beckons you inside. You get in the passenger seat as the engine sputters to life. You're feeling exhausted, even though there are still a few hours of night left. The less courteous kindred might have left you on the side of the road to fend for yourself, but Qui at least seems to care whether you make it back to your haven in one piece.
Thanks for the ride,
you say, meaning it most sincerely. It's the least I could do, the sheriff says as he pulls the car out of hiding and back onto the road. Just remember to keep quiet about what we saw tonight.
Of course.
You stay quiet for a moment. You're feeling somewhat uncomfortable and it doesn't take long to figure out why.
Qui.
Yeah?
I can't remember the last time I was this hungry outside of a scheduled feeding. Would you mind dropping me off at a place where I can hunt?
Sure, the sheriff replies. He seems amused for some reason. No problem. It's been a long time since you last found yourself in a situation requiring an unscheduled meal. The challenges and uncertainties of recent nights have revitalized the predator inside you. Tonight, your prey won't simply be handed to you on a platter, and the choice of where to hunt is your own. Unfortunately, your Nosferatu disfigurements limit you to less public places. Parks and alleys are fair game, but you wouldn't be able to hide what you are in close quarters like a nightclub. There are a number of hot spots for feeding in Ottawa, and while you haven't been to each of them personally, you've been briefed on acceptable locations, areas forbidden by the prince due to concerns of masquerade breaches, and personal hunting grounds of the city's primogen and notable coteries. Given reasonable travel constraints, you've determined a few optimal victim locations. Where do you plan to sate your cravings? Federation Park. Small community of homeless. Sapper Staircase, Greyhound Station. I like Confederation Park. We used to feed there in the early days after the Embrace, and the pickings are always easy. Familiar ground. You stroll up Elgin Street, passing beside benches and well-tended trees as you take in the sights and sounds of the park. It's been years since you've spent time hunting here, and it feels good to be back. Comforting somehow. One of the few memories of your first month as a vampire not shrouded by fog is of Corliss taking you here for your first hunt. To say it was exhilarating would be an understatement, and it left you an imprint on your undead psyche that bursts up like a rabid weed as you soak in your surroundings. You walk through the main entrance and pass by the central fountain. It's quiet during these chill winter months, but when you stalked your first mortal, it had been bubbling and splashing away just loud enough to muffle the struggle as you dragged the unwilling man into the northwest corner of the park and fed ravenously behind a row of empty benches. If Corliss hadn't been present to stop you from draining him dry, the night might have ended with a very different exercise. But fortunately, both for you and your victim, body disposal was a lesson to be learned at a later date. One of the most attractive things about Confederation Park as a feeding ground is its location central to the most notable kindred locations in Ottawa. An easy walk from Parliament Hill and the luxurious offices and living spaces enjoyed by the native vampiric population. Feeding here is limited to the upper classes, Primogen and their immediate children, friends of the prince and seneschal, and so forth. As most of these kindred are typically interested in stalking a finer breed of meat, the park goes largely unharvested. A boon to you, as the local population has no reason to raise their guard. A field of unconcerned sheep leaves the wolf with easy pickings, after all. Older gentleman sitting in the northwest in the same location, corner of the park where I stalked my first meal all those years ago, indulge in a little nostalgia. I think we're already doing that by coming here in the first place. So let's just sit down on the park benches just off the main hub and wait for an ideal meal to walk past. You take a moment to relax on one of the park benches on a path leading off from the main hub, feigning an interest in the night sky. It doesn't take long before you hear the sound of a jogger making their way closer past the fountain. Closer. Even closer. You can see him now. A young man in a white tank top, sweaty from his late-night exercise. He doesn't even seem to notice you as he approaches, his eyes fixed on the path, earbuds blasting enough heavy metal music to keep him oblivious. You've heard mortals say that food delivery is all the rage these days. Well, now it's time to enjoy a little of that convenience yourself. You dart out like a snake, wrapping an arm around the jogger's neck and pulling him into the bushes. In seconds, your fangs have pierced his skin and you're supping on his sweet blood, drinking your fill as he goes limp in your arms. It may not be door-to-door delivery, but it's the next best thing when your prey comes close to you. Or when your prey comes to you. Your hunger largely sated for the moment, you decide to move on, always aware that there's a hunger for more that you can never fully extinguish. Hey! You arrive home less than a half hour before sunup, mind reeling with the night's events. For so long, you felt like your unlife's been moving at a glacial pace, but now you're beginning to feel like a noose rests around your neck, and each night it's growing tighter. You can still barely believe what you found and with Key in the exhibition hall basement. Breaking into a Primogen's property is significantly more suicidal than you'd normally be inclined to act, but at least you have the sheriff on your side. Your whole body feels tense when you think about the event tomorrow night. Good morning, sir. Gerard greets you. I imagine you've had a productive evening?
There've been some attacks against kindred in the city. I need you to be on alert for any signs of trouble.
The ghoul raises his eyebrows. Attacks, you say? The bad old days of raids from Montreal again? You shake your head.
We don't know yet. Just be on guard for anything suspicious. If you feel like you need to hire some trusted muscle to watch the areas outside the front entrance, I'll leave that to your discretion.
Gerard scribbles down a note in the small pad he always keeps on his person. Well, the fact that you're bringing it up to me is concerning enough, sir. Consider it done.
Thank you, Gerard.
No problem at all. Before you retire for the day, I have a pertinent item for your attention. It'll only be a moment. You sink into a plush chair beside Gerard's desk as he flips through his notebook. Hopefully it's not something that requires immediate action. In a world of feast or famine, this isn't the type of feasting you've grown accustomed to. Turmoil in the court could be useful, allowing me to move upward through cunning without putting myself at risk. Remember, we're all based around stealth and such, so we need to make sure that if things do happen, that we're not discovered. So I'm completely okay with that. Gerard nods to himself and looks up from the notebook. I was able to confirm that the warehouse site you wished me to investigate is owned by a holding company based out of Toronto called Blackstrom. Further digging revealed well-disguised links to Ottawa kindred circles, specifically those owned by Alicia Gray.
That sounds unusual for Alicia,
you mutter, as much to yourself as to Gerard.
I've never known her to be invested in real estate. I could see maybe a museum or a theater, but not a construction site.
Well, if I may, sir, the area is planned for urban renewal. Land titles are being consolidated by another company for building developments along the riverside. It is entirely possible that Miss Gray simply planned on offloading the property at a steep profit.
It still doesn't explain why the anarchs were there,
you say. Gerard nods slowly. It's quite a coincidence, but sometimes that's all it is. In any case, I got the impression that further digging may reveal your involvement no matter my level of discretion. Perhaps it would be best to keep this knowledge in your pocket while I move on to other tasks. So now the question is, what do we do? What do we send Gerard to go do now? Check about the sales of large quantities of explosives? Explosion by the warehouse, information on what the police found there? Or any history into the anarch war? My thought is primarily the last two. Recent sales of large quantities of explosives, or any history between Ward and the Prince. You know what? I actually want to figure out, because we haven't heard from Ward in a while, and having this information could very much prove useful. And then after that, if we get another opportunity, we'll find out about the explosives.
I want you to look into any history the anarch Robert Ward may have had with my sire, Prince Arundel. Knowing his motivations could prove invaluable.
That can be arranged, sir. Now, if I may be so bold, you should probably sleep. It's nearly sunup. Gerard is right, and you can feel it. As you were talking, you began to feel a great weight on your shoulders. You may be shielded from the sun inside your haven, but daytime brings awareness to even the most powerful vampires. You dismiss your servant and slink to your luxurious bed. Darkness washes over you almost immediately as you recline and slip into sweet oblivion. Dark dreams. You're swimming through the ether, chasing glimmering motes in an endless sea of black. You catch a brief vision of an actor in the glacial reflection, a momentary glimpse of a past left behind forever. You push the memory back into your subconscious where it belongs. Enter the harvest for more profitable memories and draw strength that'll aid you in the coming nights. While your first year of training under Corliss's watchful eye was almost unbearably cruel, your skill and survival impressed your sire to the extent that she allowed you more time to pursue your own interest and learn mostly on your own. Many of those early lessons had been forgotten in the years of relative leisure the Ivory Tower afforded you, but the tumultuous events of recent nights have brought your training back into sharper focus. Ooh. So now we kind of get to build some stuff up again. What do we got here? Our dex is pretty high. Our intelligence is still 20. Bless Silas's heart. Um... What's our strength and stam? I feel that might actually be helpful. Our composure is 43 with our dex 54. Our manipulation... We do need to be able to defend ourselves just a little bit, if need be. What do you guys think in chat? Should we focus on intelligence and manipulation, strength and stamina, charisma and composure, dexterity and resolve, or wits and composure? What's our wits right now, actually? Our wits is at 31. I'm kind of always in the position that when I can increase my stamina, increase our ability to absorb damage, that's probably a good thing. And actually, considering the fact that we were just barely able to hold on to the Primogen when she was when she was feeding, to protect that one of Key's staff. You know what? Let's go ahead and go with this. This may be a bad call, but we'll see. Why focus my energies on intellect when I'm infused with so much raw power? I spent my time perfecting my fighting techniques and endurance. Boop. Oh wow, stamina 39, strength 45. Pretty good, all things considered. We are hungry though. Images of your old trainer float before you. A Brujah named Devon, long since lost to dust after too many social infractions against the Blue Bloods. Still, you used your time together to your advantage, and you're a more able fighter because of it. The moon rises as you slumber, and a new night dawns. Streetlights bathe shop fronts in bright pools while the occasional passing car barrels through runoff from recently melted snow, dashing it onto the closest parts of the sidewalk. You move inward toward the shops. Drivers tend to speed more in the early morning hours when there's less traffic on the road. They'll get slower and the traffic busier when the sun threatens to rise and the workday begins. Your scarf is wrapped tightly around your face to hide yourself from the mortals, but even then they still don't want to come anywhere near you. Fortunately, there aren't many on the street tonight. The exhibition hall isn't far from your haven, and you believe the walk will do you good, give you time to clear your head. Unfortunately, you've barely had time to reflect on recent happenings when a man in a heavy coat moves to pass you on the left, and you feel something poking in your ribs. "Turn right at the next crossing," he grunts. You look down. He's got something in his right hand, held underneath his coat and pointed at you. Of all the times to leave your weapon at home, it's been years since you carried it regularly, at least until the blood hunt. You'll have to remedy that, although you have no idea where you'd hide a handgun in a fitted suit. You're no easy meat, though. No vampire is. Your assailant's face is vaguely familiar, and it takes you a moment to place it before you recognize the feral that Key captured during your raid. You've heard that his adopted name is Hauberk.
"Look," you say, "you may not know this, but I helped you the other night. Ward."
"I know," Gangrel says through clenched teeth.
"Not something we should talk about out in the open. Had to keep your attention in case you decided to rabbit. Cammies don't react well to me." "Well, I certainly can't imagine why."
Hauberk pulls his weapon away from your side, but you can still see his fists nervously shaking beneath his coat.
"Don't get any ideas," he says.
You have no idea what the feral's motivations might be. Is he bringing you to Ward, or maybe he just wants to lure you into a dark alley to dispatch you? Either way, you'll need to make a decision. I think we can just beat the crap out of him right there. I'll let him lead me on for now. I'm confident that I can escape later if I have to, but for now I'm curious to see where this goes. Which is true.
Well, not putting up a fight? The gangrel grunts. That's what I thought. Weak-ass Cammy. Ward said this would be easy. I thought you would at least throw a punch.
He prods you with the gun through his coat as a concerned-looking couple passes by.
What are you looking at?
He growls at the mortals. They double their pace in the opposite direction, skittering away, clearly sensing violence that they want no part of.
Well, wherever we're going, we better get moving,
you say, barely able to hide your disdain.
You got their attention. Now they'll call the cops as soon as they round the next corner.
Hawberk rumbles deep in his throat. You're starting to wonder if he's more beast than man. No wonder Ward was so desperate to free him from Key's jail cells. You doubt someone like this would hold up for long under advanced interrogation. Hawberk leads you southwest to Somerset Street, following for a few blocks past the ornate arch leading to Chinatown. Why would Ward want you here of all places? You watch for any other kindred or ghouls along the way. Nobody you recognize. Camarilla aren't going to know you're out here. The gangrel turns right and heads north onto a residential street that would have been straight as an arrow if not for the almost randomly placed concrete barriers circling individual trees crowding out around the sidewalk. Eventually, you turn left into an empty lot between houses. Not a place for an assassination. Too many civilians, too close to the main street for a prolonged fight to go unnoticed. You let yourself relax, just a little.
Silas!
A familiar voice booms out of the shadows as Robert Ward steps away from a wall at the rear of the empty lot. Gone are his workmanlike clothes. Smudged denim overalls have been replaced by fine Armani business wear that would have been tailored specifically to fit his massive frame. Must be moving up in the world. The anarch points a meaty finger at an expensive-looking watch.
Well, I was getting worried, Hawberk, but you didn't disappoint.
An unfamiliar voice speaks up from the shadows.
You didn't tell me he was a Nosferatu, Robert. I've had good experience with the Clan of the Hidden. They're tricky, and everyone knows they don't belong in the Ivory Tower.
Oh, okay, definitely need to change that voice. You got two hellhounds. It's a freaking Gozer. The speaker is a young woman in a black tank top, a long knife held in her left hand. Moonlight glints off a thick silver pin holding her layered jet black hair away from her face, and twin Rottweilers sit obedient at her left and right. The dogs' bodies ripple with muscle beneath their short hair, and you have little doubt that they could tear a mortal to pieces in seconds. Hawberk hands her the modified hand cannon he'd herded you here with. Looks like it weighs a ton.
Well, Silas's clan doesn't matter, Sevink,
Ward says.
You know that. If I judged you the same way, you wouldn't be standing here beside me.
He turns back to you.
I hope you'll pardon Hawberk's methodology. I would have retrieved you myself, but I don't dare show my face that close to the hill. I should have made sure he treated you with a little more respect. Well, I'm here because I chose to be here, Ward. I could have slipped the ferrule at any time.
Ward nods.
Well, as expected, Hawberk was simply to show you the way. The weapon was unnecessary. I'll get to the point then.
Please do, Sevink says, crouching down slightly to run her fingertips along the ridges of the Rottweilers' heads. They don't take their eyes off of you. We're on a timetable, Robert.
I brought you here because I wanted to give you the chance to choose a side, Ward says. A choice your sire never allowed you to make.
He's taking his time, picking his words carefully.
Before I left Ottawa, Prince Arundel told me something in confidence. At first I didn't understand why he told me, but it makes a lot of sense now that Corliss is making her move to seize control. I was his failsafe, and you're a ticking time bomb at the foot of the throne. choice? What do you mean I was never given a choice?
Your mind has been tampered with, Silas. I know you felt it in your dreams. All false memories have a way of slowly unraveling. I can fill in the gaps.
You're wasting your time, Seving says. He'll betray you the moment you turn your back. The Camarilla are all the same.
Ward frowns. The Camarilla used to say the same about the Banu Hakim. I remember the stories they told me about the assassins when I was a fledgling. Assamites hiding in the dark to suck your soul right out of your body. Stereotypes based in history, sure, but they left no room for nuance. Your people deserved better. So does Silas. A Banu Hakim anarch? You think quickly, trying to process every bit of information revealed to you as if your existence depends on it. The assassin's alliance with the Camarilla is tenuous at best, at least in Ottawa. A defector to the anarchs would be bad news for those towing the line like Kashif Salik. The Bruja turns his attention back in your direction. You can stay in the ivory tower as a comfortable pet, or you can learn the truth and stand beside us against the self-righteous licks who took your free will. It's your choice to make, and you're free to leave whatever you decide. You've heard this kind of speech before, of course. It's anarch dogma to believe that everything a Camarilla vampire says is a lie, and that stands doubly true for those in positions of power like Corliss. Recruiting the child of a seneschal would likely be considered a significant win in Ward's eyes, and you don't doubt he'd twist the truth to bring you over to his side, but what if he's telling the truth?
I'll listen to what you have to say, Ward, but I won't be making any big decisions until I've had time to verify your story.
That's good. That's good, Silas, Ward says. There's a lot that we can get done together that will benefit us both. You set your jaw and give him a hard look.
I never said I'd be joining the anarchs.
You've been comfortable near the peak of Ottawa's Camarilla society for too long to seriously entertain joining the rabble. But if Ward is telling the truth about your mind being tampered with, you're willing to listen to what he has to say. Ward rubs a thumb over the glass surface of his watch unconsciously. Even an untrained neonate could tell that he's on a time frame here. I wouldn't think of my request as joining the anarchs per se, he says. Anarchs aren't an organization. We're an idea. You can help us build on that idea, but it's bigger than any of us. There's no membership cards, no official dogma. Be your own man. The words sound rehearsed, but the look in his eyes says he believes in the product he's selling.
Enough of this shit, Semig says, cutting off Ward's speech. We don't have time for the big sell.
She looks at you.
I honestly don't care whether you work with us long-term or not. Camarilla like you are reliable for one reason. You're selfish, and you'll do anything you can to maintain your comfortable existence. You want to keep your head? Maybe learn what's locked away in there while you're at it. She taps her forehead and licks her tongue mockingly. Work with us.
All right. So I guess this is kind of the point of no return. So what do you think we should do, guys? A+ use of bloodlines to live forever? Should we listen to what they have to say and then basically be considered affiliated with the anarchs, or at least fraternizing with them? I'm sure Key would love that. Or do we just basically tell them to jog on? What do you guys think in chat? I could see a lot of ways that this would go, and all of them bad. Because it's one of those situations where, like, just the fact that we're having these conversations, well, I guess that's also one of those things, like, we're already knee deep in it as far as Ward goes. You know what? Let's in for a penny, in for a pound. And just hope that we're not juggling too much.
Fine. Tell me what I need to know.
Ward glances at his watch.
I've discovered that Corliss is working with the Tremere against the Prince's wishes. She wants the Banu Hakim gone from Ottawa just like she supported kicking out the rabble. She and Arundel never saw eye to eye on integrating what she considered the less desirable clans.
You arch an eyebrow.
That's not exactly news. Then maybe what's happening tonight won't surprise you. You know all about it already, eh? The exhibition?
The Tremere are going to bomb it, Sevink says. We tracked down their supplier last night, and I only had to feed 2 of them to my pets before the 3rd told me all about the Warlock's plan. She reaches down to pet the dog's muzzles. You can't help but notice how sharp their teeth are. She looks back up at you. They riled up a mortal anarchist group and told them that the exhibition was their best chance to strike back at the capitalist elites. Normally they just picket the place, maybe break a window, but I think some coercion was involved. Blood sorcery, mental manipulation, maybe both. Either way, there's going to be a nice big cami roast tonight.
That doesn't make sense. If Corliss and the Tremere are working together, why would they target her?
As Corliss won't be attending the exhibition tonight, Ward says. She might already have told you. I used to participate in those circles before I left the Camarilla. I know she can't stand Alicia's bullshit excuse for odd.
Boss,
Hobbrick interrupts. The Pharaoh looks nervous. He's scratching his face hard enough to leave marks.
Something's wrong.
A sharp crack echoes through the night and Hobbrick's body jerks and falls flat on the asphalt. He growls and skitters to his feet as Ward and Sevik take cover behind the nearest garage, backs to its cinder block walls. The Banu Hakim's dogs tense beside her, ready to attack at her command. I carefully flee the scene. I may not be sure where I stand just yet, but if I get taken down here, I'm not going to be joining anyone. Whoop. You retreat into the darkness, leaving the anarchs to fend for themselves. Somehow you think they'll be fine. It's whoever's attacking them that should be worrying. You keep off the street, dodging from shadow to shadow. What was that anyway? Your thoughts whirl as you near Somerset Street. Who the hell would start shooting in the middle of the city like that? It won't go unnoticed, that's for sure. You barely catch sight of a man's silhouette ahead of you before he fires, but it's enough time to dodge out of the way, narrowly avoiding what could have been a pretty messy headshot. You probably have less than a second to decide what to do before the next bullet tears through your undead body. Well, I guess it's time to use that potence. And good thing that we ate a little bit beforehand. I harness the power of the blood to increase my physical prowess, allowing me to dispatch my foe with ease. You focus on the sniper, charging headlong at the man as he fires round after round into your body. The wounds are painful, but what's a little pain to a vampire with this little level of strength coursing through his veins? That's not necessarily potence, that's fortitude to absorb the shots. Your body has already begun to mend when you collide with him, knocking the man into the hard asphalt below. You lay into the attacker with a barely restrained animal fury, your knuckles growing slick with gore as you give the beast just enough free rein to do what must be done. The man's chitinous body armor takes the brunt of your attacks, until you're able to rip the breastplate off and drive your fist into his chest in a fury. It's a shoddily made badge of some kind. You rub a smudge of dirt off the front. Ico Defense, Ontario Chapter, it reads in raised metallic letters. Doesn't sound like a governmental squad name. Maybe some mercs trying to get in on the action? Hopefully you don't need to find out. Your exertion over time has left you hungry. Extremely hungry. It gnaws at you with an impatient insistence telling you that finding a victim soon might be a wise choice. It's considered quite gauche to arrive at a kindred gathering ravenous with hunger after all. The Court aren't known for listening respectively to the words of a young vampire driven by pangs of visible thirst. It's bad enough that your fitted suit is already in poor shape after the evening's events. Oh man. Yeah, there's no time. Everyone seemed to be focused on, the watch, especially Ward. I think we need to go ahead and warm them. Alicia's Gray's exhibition hall has been newly rebuilt, restructured from the ground up as a monument to artistic extravagance. Its exterior wall is masterfully crafted with layered strata of subtly varied, roughly hewn stone bricks framing glass display windows that hint at the wonders to be found within. The effect is rather lessened by a nearly 20-foot tall banner proclaiming, "This week only, Canada's finest modern art." Though you suppose you can't fault Alicia for the gaudy advertising. Masquerade must be upheld, especially in these days of a second inquisition. Massive expenditures such as this without a steady stream of income could attract the SI right to her doorstep. Or worse, the taxman. The building looks much the same as it did when you and Key visited the previous night, though the grounds are swarming with high society mortals, eager to get a sneak peek at the new exhibit so they can brag to their friends that they were among the chosen few to view it first. Wealthy mortals are much like the kindred of the Camarilla in some ways. When money becomes an afterthought, there are only two currencies worth caring about: prestige and raw power. Kindred generally covet the latter, but kind? They care more for what others think of them than what they think of themselves. Not that any of that will matter if there's a plan to bomb the place sky high. "Well, this way, sir," a sharply dressed steward says, waving you to a door reserved for elite VIPs. You recognize him as one of Alicia's many ghouls.
"Thank you, Jonathan,"
you say as the mortals watch you enviously.
"I seem to be catching a few unpleasant glances."
The ghoul nods. "That is why the mistress suggests her close associates arrive early, but it can't be helped now. This way." No, it is true. It is my fault for getting here so late. Chances are the Nosferatu would arrive early anyway, just so they don't have any people staring at them. It's my fault for getting here. I can't fairly hold Alicia accountable for my tardiness. The circumstances of your tardiness notwithstanding, it's ultimately your responsibility to arrive at the designated time. Besides, it's hardly in good faith to blame your abduction at Hauberk's hands on Miss Gray.
"Thank you again, Jonathan,"
you say as he ushers you through the door.
"You're most welcome, sir," the ghoul replies. "Might I offer a word of advice?"
"Certainly."
"Your clothing," he says, trying to pick his words carefully so as not to offend. "It is in poor shape."
If you were still capable of going red in the face from embarrassment, you might have. In your rush to get to the party on time, you neglected your physical appearance after the business with Hauberk. Your tailor suit is, of course, impeccable, but it's wrinkled and torn now, unseemly in several respects.
"Well, do you have a suggestion?"
you ask. He's already on the case, perusing a long closet of formal wear while eyeballing you to figure out your size.
"The mistress insists that her visitors fit a certain aesthetic. These backups may not be as good as a proper fit, but it will have to do."
He pulls out a luxurious Givenchy suit and urges you to try it on. It's a little tight around the chest, but you can make it work.
"Well, this is excellent, Jonathan. Thank you,"
you say gratefully.
No trouble at all, sir. He shows you up the stairs to the observation mezzanine. Enjoy the show. The exhibition begins. For the second time in as many nights, you find yourself in the midst of a who's who of Ottawa's rich and powerful. There's a wider variety of kindred at the gathering this time, with the notable exceptions of your sire, Henrik Lang, and Vivian Mayer. Newcomers whom you'd only met once or twice before are younger. Yeah, thank you very much for that, host. I appreciate you. Was that a raid as well? That I guess just didn't proc? I appreciate that. Only met once or twice before are younger, less powerful than their primogen counterparts who took place in yesterday's council meeting, but no less influential in the world of mortal politics and business. Some of these younger vampires gawk in naked awe of their elders, while others put on an equally revealing front of indifference to the centuries of collective power separating them from their betters. There we go. Just took it a sec. Welcome, Cath Attack. Soothing tones of inoffensively banal music ooze through the silver grills of speakers at all four corners of the mezzanine as a small throng of men in suits haggle over a deal with a shrewd-looking businesswoman you recognize as a local Malkavian. Alicia herself is speaking casually with someone you only know from the pictures in Corliss's files, a white-haired rabbi named Michaelis Basaras. He'd been here once before to speak with the prince about the slow integration of younger generations from Clan La Sombra into the Camarilla domains, a reconciliation between ancient enemies. Rumor has it that he presented both Arundel and Corliss with a magnificent gift upon his last arrival, further rumor suggesting that the gift was a sacrificial elder of his clan, staked, paralyzed, and at their mercy. Of course, unverified stories cannot be trusted in kindred circles, but either way, you know better than to cross paths with the Magisters. Jordan catches your eye from the other side of the room and waves in greeting. She's standing next to the glass, pointing something out to a disinterested-looking woman dressed all in white. Let's see. Let's go speak with Jordan real quick before we warn Alicia. Hey, Silas, Jordan says. Wasn't sure you were gonna make it. She picks up a piece of lint off your suit. These aren't even your clothes. Did you get in some kind of trouble on the way here? Ward sent his gangrel after me. I keep things intentionally vague. She doesn't need to know all the details. Holy crap, Silas, Jordan says. What else happened? You offer up vagaries and bits of less important information until Jordan stops digging. Well, I mean, you could have just said you didn't want to talk about it, Jordan says, clearly annoyed. But it's kind of rude to tell me something messed up happened to you and then clam up after. A sudden laugh from over by the observation window startles both of you and draws your eyes. It's the rabbi you noticed earlier with Alicia. He's a weird old man, Jordan says quietly. I've never seen him around, but he's sure getting chummy with everyone over there. His name's Michaelis Basaras. I've seen him in Corliss's files before, you say. He's from Chicago, Clan La Sombra. Arundel and Corliss were speaking to him a while back about... A Magister? Jordan burst out loud enough that a nearby man in an Armani suit glares at her rudely. Jordan gets herself under control quickly. A Magister? She whispers. I thought that was only a rumor. You're really thinking about joining the Camarilla? And we're gonna let them? Well, from what I gather, it's not so much letting them as making them sacrifice their own elders to get a seat at the table. Jordan shivers. It doesn't sound like the kind of kindred we'd want in the Camarilla. They've been butchering and torturing for centuries just because they can. Not that some of us are much better, honestly, but still. There has to be a limit, or all of us are, or all we are beasts.
I think it makes good strategic sense to bring them on board after we lost most of the Bruja, but we need to keep a close eye on them.
Jordan looks skeptical. Well, a good strategy would be recognizing monsters when you see them. You don't just open the door and invite a wolf into your home because it's strong. It's just as likely to kill you as it is to kill an intruder. Maybe more so. I've seen some insane things, but I really don't want to talk about them. Especially not with a goddamned magister in the same room. The conversation grows awkward as Jordan lapses in and out of silence. You imagine that she's reliving some disturbingly potent memory. I'm sorry, Silas. I don't mean to be rude.
No, it's okay.
You say quickly.
You don't have to tell me what's bothering you.
Thanks. Would you mind if I needed a little space? I'm popping in and out of visions. It's disorienting.
Sure, of course.
It must be bad if Jordan's asking you to leave. You can count the number of times that's happened on one hand.
I'll be around if you need me.
Below the glass of the mezzanine, the mortals begin to flock in from the main entrance, clustered into groups as they take in the exhibits below. They seem almost confused for a few seconds, as if the first display appears to be an entirely blank canvas. The card disengages from a newer vampire you've never met before and slinks towards you.
Give them a minute and the fools will be explaining its meaning to each other. And don't be afraid to watch closely. The overlook window is one-way glass.
The sewer rat gives a raucous chuckle and extends a boil-pocked finger toward another installation of dubious art. A rotting apple nailed to a piece of driftwood.
A piece of Eden, she calls it.
He dabs the edges of his eyes the way a mortal would wipe tears of laughter.
I'm not one to pay compliments to a diva like Miss Gray, but I'll be damned if this isn't the most entertaining show I've been invited to for a decade. Well, it's certainly odd, I'll give you that. I delight in the odd,
the card says.
Why continue existing at all without the occasional amusements?
My dear Silas, Alicia says, walking up from behind you. The rabbi she'd been speaking with has moved on to talk with a small cluster of neonates. I thought you'd have a better appreciation for my efforts here. She waves an arm at the window. Their reactions are the art. The contortions they'll resort to, the confusion on their faces blooming into manufactured understanding, masquerading as enlightenment. It's better than I could have hoped for. She looks up at Picard and you could swear her eyes twinkle. Even the old leper appreciates it. As fascinating as the artistic revelation is, you start to wonder just what you should say to Alicia about the bombing Ward warns you about. For all you know, it could just be a hoax, but so far the Bruja hasn't exactly struck you as the kind of anarch merely interested in pranks or false threats. Yeah, we need to get this going.
Alicia, on the way here, I was ambushed by one of the anarchs. I managed to get away, but I followed him and overheard a plot to bomb the event tonight.
Alicia laughs patronizingly. Silas, if I had a dollar for every time I heard an anarch spew threats against my life, I'd be considerably more wealthy than I already am. I appreciate your well-intentioned warning, but I'm quite sure my security is strong enough to handle the situation. You clench your teeth in frustration.
It's important, Miss Gray. They weren't fooling around. You may be right, Alicia.
Picard gurgles grotesquely. It sounds like something has come loose in his throat. He pounds a fist into his chest and the wet rattling stops.
You promised us this place of yours was safe. And if you don't care about your reputation, think about your delicate features. You wouldn't want to risk losing a nail, would you? At least, up security.
Alicia bites her tongue and waves a hand in mock surrender. Fine, but such mewling is hardly becoming of either of you. She waves over to one of her aides and speaks to her quietly before turning back to you. There, we've got it covered. Happy?
Delighted,
Picard says with a scowl. I nod along with Picard and say nothing. She flexes her fingers, lacquered nails clacking together like small knives. I won't have you two killing the mood. There are important dignitaries here, and I've spent far too long putting this together for it to be ruined by something as dreadfully boring as idle threats from malcontents. Speaking of, I should get back to my guests, if you'll excuse me. The sewer rat watches her go without comment. He doesn't seem even remotely disturbed by the diva's reaction. The floor jerks below your feet, smashing you against the window overlook. Glass cracks as you fall away, and when a second explosion rocks the entry stairs, a young woman flies backward from the impact, smashing the window into a million glittering pieces as she plummets to the concrete floor below. With the soundproof barrier shattered, screams of terror reach your ears. The mortals below are panicking and fleeing for their lives as the exhibit catches fire.
Oh god fucking damn it!
Picard yells as he falls back from the glass.
You guaranteed us sanctuary here, Alicia! Where was your security?
Miss Gray gets to her feet with surprising grace even as another explosion rocks the building. Smoke billows through the shattered glass, wreathing her golden hair like a dusky halo. Either my security team is dead or they'll soon wish they were, she growls. Fire starts to flicker on the opposite side of the exhibition hall, and you feel the creep of feral fear tingling down your spine. For a moment, it looks like Picard is about to attack Alicia. Flames dance in his eyes, and you're worried he may have lost himself to the beast. Fortunately, you're not the only one who notices the impending clash. Qui rushes forward and pulls Picard away. Whatever words he says that calm the old sewer rat are lost in the cacophony of fleeing mortals and kindred. Alicia spares you a quick glance. Well, what are you standing around for? It's an avant-garde exhibit, but I wouldn't stoop to such theatrics as part of the show. I'd suggest you leave as soon as you can. She whirls in place and adjusts her wrinkled dress as she stalks through a door leading further into the building, slamming it shut behind her with a melodramatic flourish. More than half of the mezzanine is empty by this point. Qui's disappeared with Picard. The rabbi Alicia was talking to has vanished, and you just catch a glimpse of Jordan fleeing down the stairs out of the building. Something damp rains down from above, and you realize that the hall's fire suppression systems have kicked in. You can't even hear it over the chaos, but it seems to be doing its job. The building will most likely survive the flames. In the back of the exhibit, through the jagged remains of the gallery window, you catch a glimpse of a trio in black. It looks like they might be planning another bomb. The attackers likely won't survive for long now that over a dozen vampires are after them, but it could look good to do your part tracking them down. Then again, you might have other priorities. Ooh, okay. Yeah, I think we need to kind of cover our butts here, guys, so we're going to stop that bomb before it goes off. It'd be kindred and mortals trapped inside the exhibition hall. You leap down through the broken gallery window, hitting the floor at a run. The flames from the previous two explosions have gone out, but if you don't act quickly and stop the intruders from setting off the next one, the whole place could come down around your ears. You run around a mountain of smoldering rubble, and when you're clear of the smoke, you nearly collide with three black-clad individuals holding what you can only assume is a bomb. "Back off!" one of them yells. He's holding a tightly wrapped package of what looks like gray molding clay. You recognize it from Corliss's training as a plastic explosive. In the chaos, it's hard to tell if the intruders are kindred or kind, but they seem nervous, and the fact that they haven't exhibited any supernatural powers by now is conspicuous. I am going to be so hungry. So we have a choice of using potence, and that's going to make us quite famished. We can try and negotiate with the intruders, or call out to the others to let them know where the terrorists are. What do you guys think? Where's the eat them option? The thing is, I figure with potents, while you're punching them to a fine pulp, you can at least feed from them. You can have your cake and eat it too, you know? What do you guys think we should do? I have no problem getting hungrier. Go for the cake option? All right, let's see if the cake is a lie. This is no time to play softball with a group of terrorists. An explosive is one of the few things that stands a very good chance of destroying you, and you're not going to wait around for them to set it off. You take out the man on the left first, a single punch sending him flying almost 15 feet into the wall where he lands with a cracking of bone. You feel something tearing at you from behind as the intruder not holding the bomb fires his gun. Bullets rip through your flesh, but they do little to stop you as you charge him, laying him out flat on the ground within a matter of seconds. By the time you round on the third terrorist, his face has gone white with fear. Whew. I take the bomb from him by force before he can activate it. I attack him, taking him down before he can activate the bomb. I'll let someone else deal with the explosive itself. Ooh, which one should we go with this one, guys? I'm afraid that he has like a dead man switch on it, but... Two. Yeah, because I figure if we attack him, he'll drop the explosive. I agree with that. Let's take the bomb from him by force before he can activate it. Can we feed on him in the meantime? You step forward, hand outstretched to take the explosive. You're not going to waste any time pleading to a terrorist to give you the bomb when you can just take it yourself. As soon as you take it in your hands, a scream rips its way out of your withered lungs and you fall to your knees in agony. It feels like your hands are on fire and your base animal instincts cry out to flee. You drop the bomb, heedless of damage it could cause, and run headlong out of the building as your fingers blister and electric shocks of pain flash through your body. You felt this once before during your early training. It's a ward. Blood sorcery. Silas? Silas, snap out of it. Jordan looks down on you with concern. You look around. You've somehow managed to get clear of the building before collapsing on the grass outside beneath a decorative evergreen tree. Let me see your hands. You lift your arms. They're covered in blisters and burns. Why isn't it mending? You ask shakily. He says the bomb was warded, she says. You're lucky. I've read that those things can dust younger kindred in a matter of seconds if they're not able to fight back against them. I called someone to help you. You stand? You get to your feet carefully. You'll be able to walk, but it is not going to be comfortable. I read about these things once. I should mend while I sleep, right? Aggravated damage. I think so, Jordan says, but it might take a few nights. Take it easy in the meantime, okay? Ottawa wouldn't be the same without you in it. Suddenly, Gerard is beside you, supporting you and helping you walk. I'll take the master home, Miss Tremblay. You should attend to the others. Wait, what ended up happening? Did the third bomb go off? Jordan shakes her head. No, it needed to be purposely activated. They make those things a bit more resilient than they used to. Almost impossible to set off just by dropping it. They had one of Alicia's dolls pick the bomb up and carry it out, Gerard says. Fortunately, the ward was only keyed to work against your kind, not mortals. He helps you walk to his car and sits you down in the wide back seat where you can recline. Jordan waves. He'll take good care of you, Silas. He always does. She nods appreciatively to Gerard. When you're feeling a bit better, you look me up, okay? Gerard closes the door and gets in the front seat behind the wheel. Even the rumbling of the car starting up causes your wounds to groan. All these years have numbed you to the concept of pain. Being able to mend almost any wound near instantaneously has saved you on more than one occasion, but it's left you paralyzed in the grip of a more enduring injury. Just relax, sir, Gerard says. I'll have you home in no time. That right there, that little scene reminds me of Batman Begins when he gets hit with the Scarecrow's toxin for the first time, and Crane sets him on fire, and he has to call for Alfred to like get him, and he puts him in the back seat, and you just see that look of pain and sadness on Alfred's face. That's very similar to that. Okay, well, we suffered our first bit of aggravated damage, but it looks like we saved the exhibition from another bomb going off. So maybe we did more good than harm? Not exactly sure, but we'll definitely check out the after effects of what happened in the next chapters, guys. So I'm still really enjoying this, and I hope you guys are too. If you haven't followed the Twitch channel, please do so. I try and stream on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays with random times in between. And if you're watching the replay of this on YouTube, I have a link to the Twitch channel in the description below, as well as a link to Parliament of Knives Steam page. I highly recommend getting the game yourself. And I also have a link to my Extra Life page where I'm raising money for my local children's hospital via the awesome Extra Life charity. So check out those links if you feel so inclined. Like, share, subscribe. You guys know the drill there. And we will see you next time. Later days, everyone.